Russia has just suffered yet another devastating blow to its hopes of clawing some kind of victory from this war. But this time, it wasn't a masterfully executed Ukrainian drone strike or a perfectly timed missile launch that left Vladimir Putin fuming in rage and confusion. No, the trouble this time came from a completely different and rather unexpected place, the land down under, Australia. Yes, you heard that right. Australia, a country on the other side of the world, has just tipped the scales on the battlefield in Ukraine by delivering one of the deadliest tools of modern warfare, the M1 Abrams tank. And these tanks are not just arriving, they're already rolling into battle. The Ukrainian 425th Assault Regiment, nicknamed Skala, has now officially become the second Ukrainian formation to operate Abrams tanks, following the 47th Mechanized Brigade Magura. The regiment even released a video on Facebook to confirm the news. In it, we see the Abrams firing its iconic 120mm smoothbore cannon and cutting across rough terrain like it's nothing. Although Skala's soldiers didn't specify whether these tanks came directly from Australia, analysts quickly connected the dots. All signs point to them being part of the massive aid package that Canberra promised months ago. That package is worth a staggering 245 million Australian dollars, about 160 million in US currency, and includes a full battalion of 49 M1A1 Abrams, plus spare parts and support equipment. The first batch arrived in July, confirmed by Australia's government in an official statement on July 19th. It read, "The Albanese government continues its steadfast support for Ukraine, with the transfer of the first batch of M1A1 Abrams tanks donated by Australia to the armed forces of Ukraine. In response to a request from the Ukrainian government, Australia is providing 49 Abrams tanks to reinforce its fight against Russia's illegal and immoral invasion. Ukraine has already taken possession of most of these tanks, with the final deliveries to come in the months ahead." Australian officials doubled down with strong words. Deputy Prime Minister Richard Marles declared, "The M1A1 Abrams will make a significant contribution to Ukraine's ongoing fight against Russia's illegal and immoral invasion." Defense Minister Pat Conroy added, "Australia stands shoulder to shoulder with Ukraine. These modified Abrams tanks will provide more firepower and mobility to Ukraine's armed forces. They respond to a direct request from Kyiv and are part of Australia's unwavering commitment to defend the rules-based order." For Ukraine, this is nothing short of a game-changer, because when military experts talk about the best tanks in the world, the Abrams is always at the very top, or at least near it. Why? Because it dominates in every metric that matters: mobility, firepower, survivability, and reliability. And unlike so many Russian tanks that have been reduced to smoldering wrecks in Ukraine's fields, the Abrams has been tested in real wars, from the Gulf War to Afghanistan, Iraq, and beyond. Decades after entering service in 1980, it remains the main battle tank of the US military, the most powerful armed force on Earth. That fact alone speaks volumes. So what makes the Abrams so special? Let's start with mobility. In modern warfare, a tank that's slow, clunky, or easily bogged down is basically a death trap. And that's exactly why so many Russian tanks, especially the old Soviet-era models, have been chewed up in Ukraine. Mines, drones, artillery. Russia has lost more than 4,000 tanks already, according to open-source analysts at Oryx. The Abrams, on the other hand, is shockingly nimble, despite weighing more than 70 tons in some variants. Its secret lies in the AGT-1500 gas turbine engine, which churns out 1,500 horsepower. That's enough to push the Abrams to speeds of 72 kilometers per hour on roads and nearly 50 off-road. It accelerates fast, maneuvers with surprising agility, and its wide tracks give it stability even in mud, snow, or rubble-strewn urban streets. Simply put, it can go places and do things that most Russian tanks can only dream of. But mobility is only half the equation. The Abrams is also a monster when it comes to firepower. Its 120mm M256 smoothbore cannon can fire a wide range of ammunition, armor-piercing rounds, high-explosive anti-tank shells, even canister rounds that scatter thousands of tungsten balls like a giant shotgun blast. Thanks to its stabilization system, the Abrams can hit targets with pinpoint accuracy even while moving at full speed. That means Ukrainian crews can stay mobile while still taking out enemy positions. And it doesn't stop there. The Abrams carry secondary weapons too, a 50 caliber M2 heavy machine gun and a pair of 7.62mm M240 machine guns. Together, they make the Abrams just as deadly against infantry and light vehicles as it is against tanks or fortifications. Then there's survivability. The Abrams is practically a fortress on tracks. Its armor is layered with advanced composites, ceramics, and steel, and later models are reinforced with reactive armor and even active protection systems like Trophy, which can intercept incoming missiles before they hit. Inside, the crew is protected by blast-resistant compartments and fire suppression systems designed to give them a chance to survive even catastrophic hits. In other words, while Russian crews often have seconds to flee their burning tanks, if they even get the chance, Abrams crews have a fighting chance to stay alive and keep fighting. The specific tanks Australia has sent are the M1A1 Abrams variant. These come with upgrades like thermal imaging, advanced target acquisition, improved armor, and diesel engines instead of jet fuel turbines, making them more compatible with Ukraine's existing logistics. Canberra originally purchased 59 of these units, and now most of them are making their way to Ukraine. Of course, it's not all sunshine and steel. Abrams tanks in Ukraine have already faced challenges. Some of the earlier ones delivered by the US were destroyed in battle. Maintenance has been a headache, with crews struggling to repair complex engines and electronics under constant fire. Training Ukrainian troops to operate these beasts effectively takes time and resources. But here's the thing. Ukraine has proven again and again that it learns fast. From drones to artillery tactics, it has shown an incredible ability to adapt and innovate under fire. The Abrams will be no exception. And timing is critical. Russia has been ramping up attacks with drones and launching new offensives, particularly in Donetsk. The Kremlin is desperate to capture Pokrovsk, a key logistics hub. It has thrown wave after wave of troops and equipment into the fight, often using poorly armed squads on foot, motorcycles, or even quad bikes. Imagine those ragtag forces facing down an Abrams. They'd be annihilated in seconds. A 120mm round would shred them to pieces, and the tank's armor would make Russian counterattacks nearly useless. That's the tactical impact. But the strategic impact might be even greater. The presence of Abrams forces Russian commanders to rethink their plans. Do they risk their own dwindling supply of tanks, many of which are outdated T-62s and T-72s, or hold them back and cede the initiative to Ukraine? Either choice is a nightmare for Moscow. Because let's be honest, Russia's armored forces are a shadow of what they once were. More than 8,000 combat vehicles lost, thousands of tanks destroyed or captured. The so-called second most powerful army in the world has been reduced to fielding relics of the Cold War, while Ukraine now fields Leopards, Bradleys, and Abrams. That's why this Australian contribution matters so much. It's not just about the hardware, it's about the message. Ukraine is not alone. Nations on the other side of the globe are willing to spend billions, ship heavy armor across oceans, and stand shoulder to shoulder with Kiev against Russian aggression. Meanwhile, who does Russia have? Iran, North Korea, Belarus. Hardly the coalition of allies that Putin once dreamed of leading. So let's step back for a moment. Think about the symbolism here. The Kremlin has spent years claiming that it's fighting NATO, that it's encircled by enemies. And now, tanks built in America, shipped from Australia, and driven by Ukrainian crews are rumbling across the battlefield, blasting apart whatever Moscow throws in their path. How does that look to Russian soldiers on the front lines? How does that sound to ordinary Russians back home when they hear that Putin's war machine is being dismantled not just by Ukraine but by allies spanning the globe? And how does it feel to Putin himself, who started this war to project power and dominance only to end up with his forces humiliated again and again, by drones, by missiles, and now by tanks from a continent he probably never expected to matter in this conflict? The Abrams may not single-handedly win the war. No single weapon can. But combined with Ukraine's ingenuity, Western training, and the steady collapse of Russia's once vaunted military machine, these tanks are another piece of the puzzle that could eventually tip the balance. And that's why this moment is so significant. It shows that Ukraine's fight is not just about survival. It's about global solidarity against aggression. It's about rewriting the rules of modern warfare, where drones, smart tactics, and resilient alliances can outmatch brute force and outdated imperial ambitions. So, as the Abrams roll across Ukrainian soil, remember this. Every shell they fire, every position they secure, every Russian assault they break is not just a military victory. It's a symbol of how far Moscow has fallen and how determined Ukraine's allies are to see it fail. The question now is simple. Will this new firepower be enough to shift the momentum of the war? Or will Russia find yet another brutal way to escalate? What do you think? Will the Abrams prove decisive? Or will the Kremlin adapt once more? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to keep following this story, unfiltered, direct, and free from the spin of mainstream media, make sure to subscribe, share this video, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss what comes next. Because one thing's for sure, this war is far from over.